Every time you purchase a surprisingly cheap video game console, a heavily discounted computer printer, or a basic plastic razor handle, you are walking directly into a carefully designed financial trap. You are sold the base product at a deliberate loss, only to be locked into buying expensive ink cartridges, proprietary batteries, and replacement blades for the rest of your life. This inescapable cycle of recurring revenue is the foundation of the modern consumer economy. Yet the man who laid the groundwork for this ruthless capitalist engine was not a Wall Street financier or a ruthless industrial titan. He was an eccentric traveling salesman and a radical utopian socialist named King Camp Gillette. Gillette despised competition and dreamed of a world where profit motives were completely eliminated. How did a man who actively plotted the destruction of free market capitalism accidentally invent the exact business model that forces you to keep paying forever? The origins of this accidental capitalist empire began in the year 1855 in the small town of Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. Raised in a family of restless inventors, young King Camp Gillette learned early that innovation did not guarantee financial security. In the autumn of 1871, the Great Chicago Fire incinerated his father's hardware business, plunging the family into sudden poverty. Forced to support himself, Gillette found work as a traveling salesman for the Crown Cork and Seal Company. In the year 1891, he had a pivotal conversation with his employer, William Painter, the man who had recently invented the disposable bottle cap. Painter looked at the ambitious young salesman and offered him a single, ruthlessly practical piece of advice. Painter told Gillette that if he wanted to amass real wealth, he needed to invent a product that consumers would use once, throw away, and be forced to buy again. A permanent, durable good only generated a single sale, but a disposable necessity guaranteed a lifelong customer. This concept of engineered disposability planted a deep seed in the salesman's mind. However, Gillette was simultaneously consumed by visions of a perfectly egalitarian society, free from the very profit motives Painter championed. In the year 1894, he published a sprawling, radical political manifesto titled The Human Drift. Within the printed pages of this densely written book, he proposed abolishing all competing businesses and merging the entire global economy into one massive, publicly owned monopoly. His manifesto detailed plans for a single utopian metropolis powered by Niagara Falls, where all citizens would work for the central corporation and live in perfect equality. He genuinely believed that eliminating market competition would usher in an era of unprecedented human harmony. Yet, despite his grand political ambitions, his utopian movement failed to attract followers, leaving him perpetually strapped for cash. Desperate for income, Gillette remembered the advice about disposable products and began searching for a daily human habit he could monetize. The answer arrived on a summer morning in the year 1895 while he was standing in front of his wash basin. As he prepared for work, he stared in frustration at his dull, expensive steel straight razor. During the late 19th century, shaving was a dangerous and time-consuming chore that required significant skill. A traditional straight razor possessed a thick, heavy permanent blade that had to be meticulously strapped against a leather belt before every single use. If the heavy steel edge grew too dull, the owner had to pay a professional cutler to hone it on a grinding stone. Many working men avoided this tedious home maintenance entirely by paying for professional shaves at local barbershops. However, relying on a barber required significant time and steady wages, luxuries that many laborers simply did not possess. A man who wished to maintain a clean-shaven appearance without spending money at a parlor was forced to master the dangerous art of the permanent straight razor. Looking at his useless, dull blade, Gillette suddenly visualized a completely new architectural concept for personal grooming. He pictured a razor constructed in two distinct pieces, a permanent, reusable handle and a separate, incredibly thin, double-edged steel blade. The thin blade would be clamped securely into the handle, used until it dulled, and then simply discarded in the trash. By separating the cutting edge from the handle, he realized he could solve the sharpening problem forever, while creating the ultimate recurring revenue stream. The customer would buy the handle once, but their rapidly growing facial hair would force them to buy replacement blades every single week. He immediately rushed to a hardware store, purchased pieces of brass and steel ribbon, and began sketching his design on scrap paper. Gillette knew exactly what he wanted to build, but the metallurgical reality of the late 19th century stood firmly in his way. Expert tool makers and engineering professors at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology examined his crude drawings and declared the concept completely impossible. They insisted that cheap, thin sheet steel could never hold an edge sharp enough to cleanly slice through human hair without snapping. For several long, frustrating years, the utopian salesman refused to abandon his impossible disposable blade. He poured every spare dollar he earned into hiring different mechanics and machinists to test new hardening and tempering processes. His obsession with creating a product that people would constantly throw away was about to birth a corporate empire that directly contradicted his socialist ideals. The breakthrough finally arrived in the year 1900, when Gillette was introduced to William Emery Nickerson. Nickerson was an incredibly talented, university-educated chemist and mechanical genius who possessed the exact practical skills the salesman lacked. While others had dismissed the concept, the chemist believed he could force thin sheet steel to hold a razor-sharp edge. In September of the year 1901, the two men officially incorporated the American Safety Razor Company. To protect their impending invention, they drafted a highly detailed patent application outlining a clamped, double-edged, disposable steel blade. They knew the patent would grant them a total legal monopoly over the recurring revenue stream Gillette had envisioned. To manufacture this impossible object, Nickerson designed a specialized, continuous hardening furnace explicitly for thin sheet steel. The blueprints for this custom machine detailed a process where a continuous ribbon of soft metal was pulled through extreme heat and immediately quenched. This rapid cooling locked the delicate metal into a rigid, brittle state necessary to support a microscopic cutting edge. Next, the chemist had to invent an entirely new automated grinding wheel apparatus to mass-produce the sharpened edges. The mechanical schematics for this sharpening machine utilized rotating abrasive blocks that simultaneously honed both sides of the brittle steel ribbon. This mechanized precision ensured millions of blades could be produced at a fraction of a cent without requiring expensive human cutlers. With the manufacturing architecture finalized, the company finally offered its revolutionary grooming tool to the public in the year 1903. The initial consumer response was disastrously slow, with the company selling a mere 51 handles and 168 blades. Men were deeply suspicious of the unusually thin metal and balked at the incredibly high initial purchase price of $5. However, the exact mechanism of the recurring revenue model began to take hold the following year. In November of 1904, the United States Patent Office officially granted Gillette his exclusive patent for the disposable razor. Backed by formidable legal protection, the company launched massive advertising campaigns that framed the expensive handle as a one-time investment in modern hygiene. By the year 1906, sales exploded to hundreds of thousands of razors and millions of disposable blades. The socialist salesman who despised capitalist monopolies found himself at the helm of an incredibly lucrative international corporation. He used his rapidly accumulating wealth to buy vast estates, completely abandoning the communal utopian lifestyle he had once passionately advocated. The true permanence of Gillette's economic trap was secured by a massive geopolitical crisis in the year 1917. When the United States entered the First World War, military commanders mandated that every soldier remain clean-shaven to ensure newly invented gas masks sealed tightly against their faces. The War Department desperately needed a safe, portable shaving solution that did not require a leather strap or a professional barber. Seizing this unprecedented opportunity, the Gillette Safety Razor Company secured a massive government contract to supply the armed forces. Army quartermaster ledgers from the year 1918 record the issuance of 3.5 million razors and 32 million replacement blades directly to enlisted men. The government effectively paid the corporation to force millions of young men into a daily habit of using disposable steel. When the surviving soldiers returned home in the year 1919, they brought their newly acquired grooming habits with them. They already owned the permanent handles issued by the military, but they now needed a constant civilian supply of fresh steel. Gillette had successfully captured an entire generation of male consumers, locking them into a lifetime of recurring purchases. This post-war boom perfectly solidified the hidden architecture of what economists now call the bait-and-hook business model. The corporate accounting books revealed a brilliant strategy where the handle was eventually sold at or below production cost just to penetrate a household. The true profit was entirely generated by the patented, proprietary blades that the consumer had no choice but to repeatedly buy. By the early 1920s, King Camp Gillette had achieved a staggering level of global commercial dominance. His face, printed on billions of green blade wrappers, became one of the most recognized portraits on Earth. However, a terrifying corporate crisis loomed as his original 1904 patent approached its legal expiration date. Once that foundational patent expired in the year 1921, any competing factory could legally manufacture and sell replacement blades. Rival companies eagerly prepared to flood the market with cheap, unbranded steel that would perfectly fit the millions of handles already sitting in consumer bathrooms. The entire recurring revenue empire was on the verge of total collapse. To prevent this catastrophe, the company engineered a brilliant, ruthless manipulation of intellectual property law. 6 months before the original patent expired, they released the new, improved Gillette razor, featuring a slightly altered handle geometry. The engineering blueprints for this new device mandated a completely different blade shape with a proprietary cutout in the center. By changing the physical architecture of the blade, the corporation secured a brand new patent in the year 1921. The company then practically gave away the old-style handles to flood the market, while aggressively marketing the new improved model to wealthy consumers. They had successfully invented planned obsolescence, forcing customers to upgrade their hardware to stay within the proprietary ecosystem. Despite orchestrating one of the most successful corporate pivots in history, the aging utopian salesman lost control of his own creation. During the late 1920s, the company board of directors quietly marginalized him, stripping him of any real executive power. He spent his final active years vainly trying to revive his socialist political movement, but the public only saw him as a fabulously wealthy capitalist. The ultimate irony of his life was finalized by the catastrophic stock market crash in the autumn of the year 1929. The massive fortune he had built from disposable steel evaporated almost overnight as global financial markets collapsed. Gillette spent his final years in declining health and near bankruptcy, completely alienated from the corporate behemoth that bore his name. King Camp Gillette died in the summer of the year 1932. The man who wrote passionate manifestos demanding the destruction of corporate monopolies passed away just as his own monopoly cemented its grip on the global economy. His utopian dreams of a single cooperative metropolis were completely forgotten, but his ruthless business model survived to conquer the 20th century. In the decades following his death, the bait-and-hook revenue architecture escaped the grooming industry and infected the entire consumer landscape. In the 1970s, camera manufacturers adopted the exact same strategy, selling cheap camera bodies to lock families into buying expensive rolls of proprietary film. The physical product became merely a Trojan horse designed to smuggle a permanent financial obligation into your home. Today, this engineered disposability defines almost everything you purchase. Technology companies sell heavily subsidized computer printers precisely because the patented ink cartridges guarantee a relentless stream of quarterly profits. Video game consoles are routinely manufactured at a severe loss just to trap players inside a closed digital ecosystem where the corporation taxes every single software purchase. The physical razor model eventually evolved into the invisible subscription services that currently drain your bank account. Modern software companies abandon physical disks entirely, forcing you to rent access to essential word processors and creative tools month after month. The physical, disposable blade has simply been replaced by an auto-renewing digital contract that you can never permanently own. Beyond the financial drain on the working class, this business model triggered an unprecedented ecological disaster. The corporate ledgers of the modern grooming and tech industries record billions of tons of plastic and toxic metals intentionally designed for the landfill. By making disposability the core engine of global commerce, the utopian salesman accidentally architected a system that relies on infinite extraction. The ultimate loser in this permanent architectural shift was the individual consumer. We traded the durability of the 19th century for the cheap convenience of the modern era, willingly walking into financial traps we can never escape. The architect of this permanent extraction was a radical dreamer who believed that eliminating competition would set humanity free from financial anxiety. Yet he accidentally created the ultimate mechanism for infinite corporate profit. Looking at the appliances and devices in your own home, would you prefer to pay a massive upfront cost for a truly permanent, repairable product? Or is the cheap, immediate convenience of the disposable model worth a lifetime of recurring fees and proprietary lock-ins? Subscribe to our channel to uncover more hidden histories of the systems, structures, and forgotten architects that secretly shape your daily life.